So tell me then about the shift over the last 10 or 15 years in these scaled agile transformations. And obviously today, like you described with this client in Auckland, everything's got to be remote,
Yeah.
presumably not as effective, but I'd love to get a sense of what the evolution is from the transformations 10 years ago, banking, telcos, that sort of environment, to the clients that you're working with today. And how, describe what it was like 10 years ago.
So 10 years ago, and it's so interesting to reflect on this now. Yeah, I read Scaling Software Agility, which is a book that Dean published in 2007. And then I discovered that wasn't the latest book. So then I read Agile Software Requirements. This is 2011. And I'm this crazy, angry business sponsor with this program of work I've been sponsoring for 5 years. It's never delivered anything. And in the
You were
strange,
the crazy, angry business sponsor.
yeah, I was a crazy. I was very angry. You would be angry too if you were me. I refer to it now as the money fire. So basically, here's my job, right? Go to the CFO, ask for money, give the money to IT. IT, lights a match, sets us on fire, comes back, asks me for money. I get to go back to the CFO and say I need more money. 5 years, 5 years. That's all I did. Ask for money, and try to explain where the other money went. Anyway, in the strangest restructure ever. I end up the technology GM for the same group I had been the business sponsor of for the past 5 years. Apparently, they couldn't find anybody appropriately qualified. So, you can do it, Em. Sure. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a geek, so I read books, and I'm reading these books by Leffingwell, because they'd been doing some agile. They've been doing something they've been calling agile. Let's just go with that. And it was interesting to me because I could see, little rays of light, but it still wasn't really making anything happen. So hence the reading. And Dean's books talk about this agile release train, and that sounds cool. We should so do this thing. So I set about launching this train at Telstra in early 2012. It wasn't called Safe, right? It was just the books and this thing called an agile release train. Now, to look back, 10 years ago, it wasn't called Safe. People weren't running around doing this. I was not actually really qualified for the job I was in. Well, I wasn't a technology leader by any stretch of the imagination. And I decided I'm just going to launch an agile release train. So, they were sort of rare and unusual beasts. And I'm not sure I really understood that when I went down the path of doing it. I'm big on I read it in a book, I read it in a blog, I heard it at a conference, I'll just try it. That's very much always been my mental model. So I read it in a book and I just tried it. Then we discover that actually literally nobody is doing this. So it becomes Australia's first agile release train and Australia's first safe implementation. And oh boy, have I learned a lot since then.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was reflecting on that because I dug out The Art of Avoiding a Train Wreck,
Oh,
right? I was like, and this is one of the ones that Tegan, you signed for Tegan. But obviously you've learnt a ton since then because
yeah,
you've managed to put together a tome of tips and tricks and things to avoid
yeah.
as you are pursuing these transformations. As an industry, though, or as an industry, I mean, I guess this spans many industries, but
Yes.
as a practice these days, are we actually getting better at these transformations? Are we still, I mean, are there companies out there today, Em, that are still taking piles of money and setting it on fire?
So I think I meet people every day who hear my story and go, "Oh my God, did you used to work here?"
Yeah, right.
So, I think there's still many, many organizations that have an experience that resonates with that is like the experience I had back in 2010 and what have you. So it seems to be something that really resonates with people. Um, and I guess so many of the businesses we go into now either are not agile at all, or
Mm.
I guess like my world was doing something they call agile.
Mm.
And what we find is there's something that they call agile. I don't want to say it's not agile, but it leaves a lot to be desired. You know,
They're on a journey, right?
yeah, well, I guess so, because they end up having a conversation with us, so they understand that what they're doing is not enough. They understand that what they're doing isn't getting them the results that they want. I don't know that they understand why.
Mm.
It's interesting to me sometimes that they look to SAFe, because I one of the, you asked me about, how's the client base changed, and one of the things that's really interesting in Australia is we get far more of the small to medium sized companies now than the big ones.
Okay.
So they're companies that consider themselves agile, but we're calling them the startups that are no longer startups, right? These are organizations that, they're generally old 10, 20-year-old startups, and they're scaling, and they see their problem as a scaling problem. So that's what leads them to a conversation around the Scaled Agile framework. And when we look at them through a SAFe lens, we go, gee, you're tiny. But okay, I can see that, you can have an agile release train, and it won't do you any harm, and in fact it will probably help you a lot in terms of mid-range planning, because mid-range planning just seems to be a non-existent for a lot of these organizations. Prioritization, which seems to, a lot of these small organizations very knee-jerky in terms of how they prioritize, bouncing from one thing to the
Are they
other.
reacting to the market, or are they reacting to the leaders' kind of maybe the lack of discipline in the leadership?
You know what? They would say they're reacting to the market. I would say they've got a discipline issue.
Yeah, okay.
So, it's I read, obviously big reader, last summer, obviously Australian summer, US winter. Uh, I read Melissa Perry's the Build Trap, and interesting book, and you're well respected thought leader in product management. Not a big fan of SAFe, probably not a big fan of agile either, was the sort of takeaway I had from her book. But the thing that she does talk about that I really thought was valuable was the lunacy in chasing your competitors. So building features because your competitors
Competitors.
built them, or building features to land a contract or retain a customer. So I thought she sees all of that as lunacy, and I tend to agree. So that was that's kind of interesting. Her perspective is, you don't know if the competitor's actually having any luck with that thing that they've built. So if you build it because they built it, you don't know. You don't know. You have no idea. So don't just build it because they built it. It might not be doing them any favors either. And of course, once you start just doing random stuff for this big customer or this big client, you start to lose your way as an organization. People end up with completely different versions of their products, branches that they can't integrate anymore. It's interesting. So when I look at that, I go, I feel like there's a discipline issue in some of these organizations at the leadership level. What is it we're trying to do? What is our vision? What is our mission? What is our market? What are we doing to test and learn in that market, as opposed to just scattergun, let's do everything, grab everything. Oh my goodness, they're doing that over there. Stop this, start this, stop this. And of course, if you're stopping and starting all the time, you're not delivering anything. And that seems to be something that we see a lot with these organizations. They're not delivering, and I'm not saying their delivery mechanism is perfect. There's challenges there too, but some part of the problem is the inability to stay a course, pick a course and stay a course. And I'm not saying don't pivot, right? Because that's stupid too. But be more deliberate in your choices to pivot, perhaps.